say something totally shocking, and I'm glad I can say it because a lot of people seem to be totally confused about this. Hi guys, let's begin by talking about France. France is going through elections now, and unfortunately Marine Le Pen's party, which is a right-wing party, just lost the election. So Marine Le Pen is known for her strong criticism of open borders, illegal immigration, and Islam.
J'en appelle à la sagesse et au bon sens des Français. Qu'on me donne une raison, une seule, pour garder sur notre territoire des étrangers qui collaborent avec une idéologie totalitaire qui veut la mort des Français.
She has been called a fascist, a radical, a right-wing extremist, but I honestly don't understand why it's so extreme to call for deportation of people who say that they want to conquer you.
إن حضارة فرنسا والغرب حضارة كاذبة خاطئة، حضارة إلحاد وكفر، فهم يكرهون دين الله الحق، دين التوحيد. حضارتهم حضارة عهر وفجور وشذوذ. يا مكرون الزم حدك، يا مكرون الزم حدك، بالجهاد نهدم مسجدك، بالجهاد نهدم مسجدك. يا مكرون يا خسيس، يا مكرون يا خسيس، بكرة رح نفتح باريس، بكرة رح نفتح باريس.
To say that Islam is not a problem in Europe is to be absolutely blind to reality. Again, I'm an immigrant myself, and I think that immigration can be a very positive thing. But every single person coming in should be vetted. Their background should be checked. And accepting the idea that illegal immigration is okay is basically accepting the idea that it's okay to break the law. On top of that, there is the issue of integration. Europe could be a melting pot, but when we're talking about millions of immigrants that come in yearly, have no desire to integrate, and openly despise Western values, there's no way these people will integrate on a large scale. So what we're seeing in Europe is basically a replacement going on. And it is estimated that Islam will become the dominant religion in Europe in another 20 years, if nothing is changed. Look what happened after Marine Le Pen won the first round of elections.
Comment ils vont faire?
I see police that are scared and outnumbered, and I can't blame them for it. But then the left won in the second round of elections. You want to know how they celebrated? Yep, violence again. For some people, there's just one way they can express their feelings. Very unstable situation, and it looks to me like France and other countries in Europe are on the brink of a civil war. Now let's take a look at America. We have a wide open border to the point that we literally don't know who is here. This sweet child was just 12 years old. She was raped and killed by 2 illegal immigrants. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated incident. Every week we hear of another story where illegal immigrants rape and or kill people. And I know that illegal immigrants are not the only people who commit rape and murder, but I also know that their victims would have been alive now if it wasn't for our open border. So we have an external threat coming from the Mexican border. We also have the internal threat coming from different groups inside this country who are engaging in violent protests. There was literally a pogrom in LA last week with many people who were injured. recent examples of violence and unrest that are happening in developed countries that are supposed to be peaceful and stable. Another example is the terrible tragedy that happened in Israel on October 7th, which resulted in 1,200 people killed, 200 people taken hostage, and started this long and bloody war. Every civilized person wants safety, but how do we get there? So usually in normal countries, we have two layers of protection. Number one is the government protection, like police and rule of law, and then the second layer of protection or defense that we have is our ability to protect ourselves. So the mistake that a lot of people make is that they rely on government protection. And in the past, the world was safer, and I can see how it would make sense to do that. But unfortunately now we just can't do it anymore. I showed you different examples from Europe, America, and Israel, all of which are developed countries, and they're just not stable anymore. Being developed and having great technology doesn't necessarily help. In the case of Israel, reliance on technology created a false sense of security, which contributed to the disaster of October 7th. Things are just not stable anymore, and this is a situation when that external layer of defense from the government can fail. So the source of instability is, of course, liberal policies which encourage illegal immigration and refuse to punish crime. And this is when we really need to have that second layer of protection or defense, which is our individual ability to protect ourselves. This country was founded by absolutely brilliant people who recognized this as a necessity. And that's why we have the Second Amendment. Let's see what happens when government protection totally fails and people have no means to protect themselves. October 7th is a perfect example because I'm going to say something totally shocking, and I'm glad I can say it because a lot of people seem to be totally confused about this. Contrary to popular belief, very few people in Israel have access to firearms. Here is the way it works in terms of gun ownership. I got that information from experts. Everyone serves in the military and everyone is trained, but your service weapon belongs to the army, so you have to turn it in at the end of your military service. The only people who can legally carry a firearm are active members of the military, security personnel, law enforcement, and a small privileged group that falls within several eligible categories that the government feels are worthy of obtaining a license to own 1 pistol and 50 rounds of ammunition. Rifles are totally illegal for civilian possession, and the average citizen has absolutely no way to own any type of firearm whatsoever. My husband is from Israel, and the reason he left is because even living on a settlement in the West Bank, he wasn't allowed to carry or own a firearm. What you have on the kibbutzim and settlements is so-called first response teams, which is basically a small group of people who have guns and who can respond in case of threat. And obviously on October 7th, they were completely overwhelmed. Hundreds of innocent civilians were viciously murdered by Hamas terrorists. Had they been armed, this wouldn't be a Holocaust-like slaughter, it would be a battle. Obviously, there would be a lot of casualties, but a large percent of people would survive. If they could defend themselves, that would save lives by A, killing more of the attackers, and B, buying time for the help to finally arrive. And of course, the terrorists knew very well that they were attacking basically unarmed people. So the October 7th massacre in Israel is a demonstration of what happens to unarmed civilians when external government protection fails. People get slain like sheep, kidnapped, their dead bodies mutilated, they get tortured. And it's a fact that Israel has one of the best armies in the world. In the past, they conducted brilliant operations. They were able to preempt terror attacks and save lives. But this time, they failed. There's always a human factor and devious minds that can meticulously plan something so evil that nobody can expect it or plan for it. I know I sound like a broken record, but October 7th and all this violence that's happening in the world right now are painful reminders to us that the government won't always be there to protect us. So I believe that guns are not toys for alpha males. They're not decorations on the wall. They are not a luxury. They are a necessity. So here's a video of me shooting. I posted this video on Instagram and a lot of people asked me where I trained. So here's the name of the place. It's Haref Gidon, Israeli Tactical Training Academy. They have locations nationwide. Disclaimer, I'm not getting paid to promote them. I'm just answering a question. But yeah, I gained a lot of effective skills to protect myself and my family, and I think it was really important. If you like this content, please hit the subscribe button together with the bell sign so that you don't miss any of my future videos. This is Simply Shula.